Hi there. My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks. And
I'm Sweet Baby James Maynard, that is.
tonight I want to continue talking about the ego, but we're on to something else. We finished our three-part series on Monday.
The soul and
the soul and the ego. And tonight I want to talk about living beyond the ego, starting with one pattern at a time. We're turning the tables on the whole thing. But before we get into that, I'd like to turn this over to Sweet Baby James, who's going to introduce our show.
Yes, welcome to Granny Rocks Our World, where once again Granny is going to share her wisdom, her wit, and her uncommon sense to rock our world and shift our perspectives and hopefully help us along our path of evolution in life. And we air every Monday and Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So stay tuned and keep coming back. We love having you with us.
We do. So I just noticed that we have a real live phone here, but nobody will call. What the heck? Somebody calls, throw it away. Okay, so just to kind of clue you in, so the last three shows were about the soul, like the inner being, and the ego, and where the ego came from, and the kind of power struggle between the soul and the ego, and how they connect. So we completed that, I think, on a high note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did talk about how sometimes, we want to give up that struggle, but to remember that we're all connected. So, when you feel like you're just too exhausted to go on, it's okay, because there's other people in the trenches. It's not just all on you or me. And tonight, I want to start talking about what we can actually do to change that power relationship between the soul and the ego, and to start freeing ourselves. So if you haven't watched those other videos, go back and watch them. They're on Facebook. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Granny Rocks On. And also, you can go to YouTube, Granny Rocks TV, and we put all the archives on YouTube. It's not where the action is, this is the happening page. But it's very easy to go boom, 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 and watch those videos. So anyway, tonight I want us to support us all to move forward. So we describe the ego as a set of coping mechanisms that we have created, consciously or unconsciously, to help us survive and keep us safe. So the ego is born when we're born, and we realize we're out there on our own and nobody's feeding us unless we cry, and we're not, in that warm bubble place, you know what I mean? We're going to have to fight for survival. And so all these ways develop for us to get our needs met, and we create personas, personalities, characteristics that work to the best of our ability in the environment in which we live. So, for example, if you move in, if you're born into a family that has 10 children, you're going to have to work really hard to try to figure out how to get your needs met, because you've got a lot of competition, right? Whereas if you're born as an only child, your parents are probably doting on you, and they, every move you make, every time you sigh, they're so, there's that. And then you have to figure out who is the biggest power in the house, and how are you going to get them to take care of you? Is it mom who's giving you, the bottle, the tit, whatever? Is it dad is it grandma? Who is it, and who do you have to manipulate, and what would be the best way to manipulate them? So some of us turn out to be very aggressive because that's what worked in our family, or we turn out to be very sweet because that's what we say, oh, isn't that cute? So now the point is, we created these coping mechanisms. They didn't just descend from the sky. Now, there is also our own biological, genetic, but I don't know how much of our behavior is based on genes and how much is based on family. I do know that a lot of it is based on the environment in which we're living. And I gave examples of people who grow up in very dangerous neighborhoods or have to worry about getting shot. It's there's gangs. You have to put on this kind of tough guy act, right? If you grew up in 19th century England and you were in the middle class, you were supposed to be delicate, right, and willowy and obedient. So if we have created this ego, these coping mechanisms, which actually make up the ego, we can discreate that. Now, I used to believe that the word discreate was something I made up.
Oh.
Well, would you believe I looked in the dictionary and there really is a word, discreate. How do you like that? I intuited it. What can I tell you? I'm very intuitive. So if we created it, we can discreate it. We can say, oh, and Elizabeth just said hello, Beth and James. Well, hello, Elizabeth.
Hello.
We're so happy to hear from you. You are the first to speak. In fact, you may be the first. No, there's other people. But so isn't that a shocking thought? We've been talking about how powerful the ego is, how deeply entrenched these behaviors are, how the ego is always trying to stop us from changing, and it will. Trust me, it will try, because our egos are based on our fears, right? The fears that we're not going to survive. So the ego is based on fear, and how am I going to take care of myself? So it's a very strong part of us. And the ego tells us that we are it and it is us. So we've got that message and our real selves are pretty suppressed by ourselves and our families in the process of trying to figure out how to make it in this world. You think that women, look at high heels like stilettos. Do you think that women were born with stilettos on their feet? I don't think so. I think somewhere along the way, women were told that their legs are sexier when they're wearing stilettos. I'll tell you the real purpose of a high heel shoe. It's to put your heel through some man's foot if he's molesting you on the subway. That's what I learned when I was a little girl. When I was on the subway, I figured that one out. But other than that, there is no purpose, right? And yet you would think, as I said, that women were born with high heels, or women were born in the kitchen, or men were born with, I don't know, a shovel in their arms or whatever.
Or mechanical skills.
Mechanical skill. All men have mechanical skills, as we well know. So anyway, these personas that we have created, they are creations. So even though the ego is always telling us that, oh no, if you stop behaving this way, you're going to die, because, if you don't act tough, the bully is going to get you. If you don't act sweet, no man is going to want you. If you don't act heterosexual, you're not going to be able to keep your job. With all of that story coming at us that scares us, like, oh no, I can't connect to myself. It'll upset the apple cart. Maybe I'll discover that I'm somebody different from who my mother wants me to be. But if we understand and really take in what I'm saying, it sounds so simple, but this is a big deal, all right? This is a big deal. We have created the ego. We have created these coping mechanisms. We can dismantle it.
Yep.
Do you believe it, James?
I do believe it.
Oh, yeah, like hell.
What do you mean, like hell?
You don't believe it. The minute your ego starts yelling at you, you go running for cover. Don't you?
My ego tends to push me around, yes.
It does. And our egos tend to push all of us around, I have to say. However, we can do something about this. So with this realization, we can change everything, because it's not just us, it's everybody. When you think about it, the world as we know it is the ego in a collective form. Like, you don't just wake up and come into a universe that you created. Oh, Island says
Elan.
complicated.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Right
simple. But simple. When you really get it, it's really very simple. So we live in what I'm calling now a mass hallucination that this is reality. Now, I'm not talking like one of those gurus who said there is no objective reality. Like hell, there's no objective reality. If I walk into that wall, that is not a hallucination. I'm going to walk into that wall, I'm going to bang my head against it. But what is a mass hallucination is the societies that we co-create wherever we are in the world, that tell us what our roles are supposed to be, and that tell us how we're supposed to feel, and tell us how we're supposed to behave. And this is all ego. In other words, these are all coping mechanisms on this societal level that we have collectively created. So no wonder it's so difficult to stop. Right? It's not.
Right. There's a lot of societal pressure to stay in that mold.
That's right. It's a big, if you, all you have to do is look at the political situation today and you watch what people are saying, and you could get sick. I get sick on a regular basis because people are just hallucinating all the time, making stuff up constantly and telling themselves and all of the rest of us it's true. Well, anyway, so I want you to think right now about one coping mechanism that you created as a child. Now, when I say you created it, remember, I understand that these things came out of a context, right? Maybe you did have to fight for your needs. Maybe you did have to make your mother feel guilty, or she would never have taken care of you. Maybe you did have to please your dad in order for him to not kill you while you're in the crib because he's sick of working. Maybe you did have to do all of this. This is real, but it doesn't mean that it's inside us, that it is intrinsic to us. It just means that it's become a habit for so long. So I want you to think of one coping mechanism.
I've got one.
Okay.
I took on being an achiever.
Okay.
Achieve the grades, achieve this, achieve that, please the parents.
And how was that a coping mechanism, James?
Well, I competed, and I competed hard.
But
and
why?
This enabled me to cope, to get approval, and to receive attention, positive attention, love, affection, appreciation.
And why did you think that being an achiever was going to do it? I know why.
Okay, say it.
I know that was silly, wasn't it? But I need a little lightness, levity. Okay. It's because your mother always thought your father was a loser.
So I had to be a winner.
So you had to be a winner to differentiate yourself, to distinguish yourself from your father.
Uh-huh.
And that was the way you were going to get your mother's undying support.
Yep.
Now, I want to tell you a little bit something that I figured out about myself just recently, thanks to these shows that we're doing. When I was a child, I felt that it was my mother who wanted me, and my father couldn't have cared less because he was afraid for her health and all of that. And yes, but my mother wanted me, but who did she want? She wanted a girl. She already had a boy. The boy was rambunctious, he was like a trouble, he liked to play, he wasn't nice. So she wanted a nice little girl, and that would be me. You have no idea how nice I really am. So, I was extremely smart. She liked that. My brother was also extremely smart. See, I was musical, he was musical. But what I had that was really different was that I was nice. And I would always put her needs and wants and wishes before my own. Now, that was before I became a teenager. Don't worry, I finally grew out of that. But it started me off on a course in life where I have had a tendency, believe it or not, to put the needs of others before my own. When I became a fighter for justice, and I was a political revolutionary and a political activist, I mean, you probably don't think that a social activist such as myself would be such a namby-pamby. But the truth was that I was always out there ready to fight for you, but not for me. And another thing that I did is I tried to make myself look less threatening so that my brother wouldn't kill me, because he didn't like the fact that my mother said, "Oh, go, go, gaga, I love this. This is a little girl. I love having a little girl," right? So, and connected to all of this, I cared more about other people's feelings than I did my own. Now, this is a pattern I have had all my life, guys. I am 74 years old. Oh, hello, Donna.
Hi,
Donna said, hello, Beth and James. I hope you can catch up if you haven't seen much of this show. So, am I stuck with this? Heck no. In fact, having focused on this one pattern, I started seeing it everywhere. I mean, our gardener, for example, we have a property and there's no way that we could do the gardening. You know, we live in the country. Jamie, this makes so much sense. Sounds so familiar. Oh, I'm so glad,
Great.
Jamie. That's good. So the gardener, he has his ideas, and James has his ideas, and the gardener was a little, and you know, and I'm concerned. I don't want the gardener to feel upset like we're doubting him. And don't want James to feel upset. And I don't want to be upset. But, you know, all of a sudden it dawned on me that what we needed to do is to ask someone else that we really trusted her opinion. When I say garden, I don't mean like garden flowers. I mean like cutting down trees that have fallen, and, you know, we're in the country, right? So I said to James, why don't we call so-and-so and ask her to come over and give us a second opinion? Now, I haven't faced the gardener yet to tell him that we got to face a second opinion, and I'm sure he's going to be upset. Well, maybe he isn't even going to be upset. But even if he is going to be upset, this is our home. This is our land. This is our responsibility. I would rather go away and say, oh, I'm not thinking about this. I can't think about this. I don't want to think about this. You handle it, James, right? And James is all upset because he doesn't know if the guy is right. Rather than potentially hurt the feelings of the gardener who's supposed to be working for us.
For us.
For us. I kid you not. Now, does that sound stupid to you, or does it sound very familiar, as Jamie says? And there were more examples, one after another. I began to see example after example where I was more worried about how someone else felt than how I felt. And, you know, I decided to quit it. And we called the other gardener who we trust. No, she's been in the business forever. And this guy is really not that experienced. And we have every reason to ask. And, you know, maybe he's doing a great job. Maybe he isn't. But maybe he's going to go off in a huff. Maybe he'll never come back to our house again. Maybe he and his wife are going to quit because I don't, familiar, Anne says familiar. So cool. Anyway, that's my thing. And so I broke the pattern time after time after time. So yes, I've done it way more than I've broken it, because I've only started breaking it in the last couple of days. I have the pattern, but I am catching myself. See, guys, that's what I am inviting you to do. I want you to start thinking about this, catching things. Maybe on our next show, people will talk a little bit about what they've done. Take one pattern at a time. I am so happy. And my ego is not happy with me. It's saying, no, you shouldn't do this. You don't look like a nice person anymore. You are not being a nice person. You know, and like, well, I'm not being a nice person. I'm being a real person. I'm being a healthy person. Anyway, you get it? So, you know, I am telling us that we need to be always focused on what is for the highest good of all, but that needs to include us. And I have never done that in my life, and I figured out why, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. I'm not standing for myself anymore.
You go for it, girl.
Wouldn't you say that's true, James?
That is true. I'm watching it. I'm seeing it.
It's horrifying, isn't it?
Well, it's a little scary.
Now, I just want to tell you that the weekend of November 9th, we are going to have a retreat in Oregon at our place.
On the river.
On the river with the big trees and the mountains and the river rapids and me, the bad girl. I am going to be there, and I'm going to be putting out a flyer about it very soon. It's $500 for the whole weekend, but then you have to pay for your own room and board, or $750 for a couple, and it has to be in person. I don't want to do any more of these retreats over the internet. I do a lot of things on the internet. We're doing a men's workshop in June, and not June.
Workshop.
I mean September 22nd, and we do relationship. I do everything on the internet. But these retreats, people come to Oregon. If you possibly can, think about it. And I'm going to be putting out, as I say, putting out a flyer about it soon. And I'm calling it, what the heck am I calling it? Something like turning the tables on the ego. And we're going to be dismantling it step by step together. It's going to be a very small group of people. I also want to remind you about, oh, hi, Asi, bonjour, madame, she said, and bonjour, Asi. So we also have a discussion group every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time, where they talk about my book, Living with Reality, which is all about transforming the ego collectively.
It's a manual for working with tools for changing your consciousness.
Oh, yeah. There's tools and everything. And it's free. It's on the website, bethgreen.org. And I've written a bunch of books on the topic. Believe me, I actually know a lot about the ego and about how to transform it, even though I still do stupid things. And as he said, bonjour, Madame Beth, and she sent you some hearts. Elizabeth says, these retreats are transforming, wonderful, insightful. I highly recommend you come.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much.
That's very true. I concur.
They are, and we have a really good time. And she said, j'ai été absente, je m'excuse. She's been absent lately, and she, says, excuse me. We are happy to have you back. We are happy to have you, and she's waving. So anyway, I have run out of time, as I am wont to do, and we're going to be having a discussion group tonight in 8 minutes at 7 p.m. Pacific time called Growth, that there is a charge for. The one on Saturday mornings is free, and it's about my free book.
The first one on the Wednesday night is free.
The first time you come, it's free, and I actually lead it. And
for how to join it, you go to the Facebook page, because it's a video conference. It's not on this.
Right. You go to the post on this show. So a few minutes after we get off, I will put up a post, and it will have all the information, but it's going to take that time. So anyway, we are going to turn the table on these things. We are not afraid. And Asi is laughing and sending love, and we are doing the same back. You. And all of our love.
Merci beaucoup.
That's right. All of our love to all of our wonderful viewers. And we're not taking this sitting down. We have to transform this world one drop of water at a time. Yes, everything is going well. Asi asked, how is it doing? We're doing great. So we love you, and don't forget Dreams of Peace tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I play the piano for you. And that's 7 p.m. Pacific time. So, and join us again on Monday night at 6:30 for Grow. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye for now.